we are here today to celebrate like the winners of the second annual Development Impact Awards, Real Humanitarian, Care Fund, and UNICEF Canada. These awards recognize and honor projects that align with at least one of the six core action areas of the Feminist International Assistance Policy, or FIAP. These like the action areas that have brought about like a meaningful change in communities. All three award-winning projects are working in the area of gender equality and empowerment of women and girls. On February 4th, at a special event at the Manitoba Legislative Assembly, Real Humanitarian, UNICEF Canada, and Tier Fund received their awards in front of their peers, elected officials, and the public.
It was a great day to celebrate all of the award winners there. And so, let's dive in. Let's start the conversation. So UNICEF Canada, and from UNICEF Canada, we have Samantha Ash, who you've heard a little bit from today, the Deputy Director of International Programs at UNICEF Canada, and Rhoda Enchil, the Education Officer at UNICEF Ghana.
Thank you so much, Grace. And yes, hi everyone. Absolutely thrilled to be here today with Rhoda to talk to you a bit more about our project, UNdaunted Ghana. I want to take you back a bit to when the project began and why we focused on adolescent girls and their education. So the last 25 years has seen a steady rise in girls' access to education around the world. And with that rise, we've seen communities and entire countries transform. This is because girls who receive an education are less likely to marry young and more likely to lead healthy, productive lives. They earn higher incomes, participate in decisions that affect them, build better futures for themselves and their families. But despite this steady rise, there continues to be barriers that push girls further from the classroom. And some of these obstacles are visible, like the long distances students must travel to school, the lack of proper school facilities, including hygiene facilities or wash facilities, or financial pressures on families. But then there are other barriers that are more subtle, yet equally devastating: deep-rooted gender norms, early marriage, and the quiet but powerful message that education is not for everyone. Now, for girls in Ghana, pregnancy is one of the big leading reasons they leave school. And the pressures of motherhood combined with stigma and lack of support have created some of these more subtle barriers that few can overcome. So when the UNdaunted project began, in 2018-2019 school year, there were about over 7,000 students who became pregnant in that year. And for a third of them, 33%, childbirth marked the end of their education. And this was not because they lacked ambition, but because they lacked support. And then came the pandemic, which further amplified these challenges. In 2020, there was a 10-month school closure that affected 9.2 million students in Ghana. Now, for some, it was just a pause, but for others, especially girls, it was the end of their education. When schools finally reopened, many didn't return. And so this was the situation when UNdaunted Ghana began and through the first year of the project. When we launched UNdaunted, we knew we had to tackle the barriers that prevented adolescent girls from staying in school, but also the challenges that girls face in studying math and sciences, fields that could open doors to greater opportunities, but remained out of reach for too many. In the 2016-2017 academic year, for example, and that was the data we're using when we began, only 4 out of 10 girls were studying these subjects. So these are numbers we wanted to change. Our objectives when we began the project were clear. First, it was to create safe and inclusive learning environments for adolescent girls. And these environments were just about physical safety. They were spaces where girls felt empowered, supported, and confident to pursue their education without fear of judgment or exclusion. Our second objective was that we aim to encourage and support girls in science and math education, fields they've often been overlooked in. And this goes for girls and women around the world. Now, the importance of STEM education was not just taught in the classroom, but reinforced throughout the community, ensuring that everyone, from parents to teachers to community leaders understood its value for girls' futures. And third, we sought to address the critical barriers that kept girls from attending and completing junior high school, whether these were financial hardships, societal pressures, or early marriage. Our goal really was not just to keep girls in school, it was to make education something that felt achievable despite any challenges an individual was facing. So UNICEF Ghana selected 5 districts listed here on the slide with the highest dropout rates and the greatest incidence of early marriage and pregnancy. This was an intentional choice, as we knew these areas needed to be the most support to change the narrative and give girls the chance to succeed. We also knew that to make a lasting impact, we needed a whole school approach that engaged the entire community and was co-created with a range of stakeholders that Rhoda's talked about. So this is how we could impact lasting change with MCIC and other partners standing alongside us. We set out to reach as many adolescents as possible, and we're proud to say that over 29,000 young people were directly impacted by the UNdaunted program. These are not just numbers. They represent students who are now empowered to continue their education despite the odds stacked against them. One of the ways that we helped empower these adolescents was by opening doors to STEM education. So girls were given the tools and encouragement to see themselves as future scientists, engineers, and leaders. And by fostering their interest and helping them strengthen these skills, we created pathways for girls to access more opportunities. We also made sure to introduce them to role models in STEM, women who are excelling in science and math and engineering and technology fields, and showing the girls that they too could reach these heights. Now, to support this push for STEM, we distributed over 5,000 science and math and learning materials to 182 junior high schools. These resources were important because they didn't just equip students. They equipped teachers, empowering them to deliver quality education in subjects that are key to breaking the cycle of limited opportunities. Enough from me about this. Let's watch a short video from the team in Ghana and some of the adolescent girls who were part of the program.
In 2018, UNICEF, with funding support from Canada, rolled out the gender-responsive pedagogy to address challenges that impede girls' participation in science and mathematics programming.
Riddle, riddle. Riddle. I am a set which contains all the elements of other set. For now, the girls are more active, participatory when it comes to teaching and learning of mathematics, unlike the previous days.
We built the capacity of teachers to be able to use locally available materials to teach science concepts and then mathematics.
This program has really helped us. Now it's not only the theory maths we are learning in this school, we are also doing practicals too.
This has gone a long way to improving BEC pass rate in the 3 regions that it was rolled out and the 5 districts that the program was implemented in. After 4 years today, we're able to observe that teachers are still using the knowledge that they gained 4 years back to still engage learners in participatory learning programming, and it has been very fruitful.
For every girl, every right.
We knew that the journey didn't stop at the classroom door. Which is why we also trained 2,270 upper primary school teachers to help their students transition smoothly to junior high school. And this training equipped them to support students, particularly girls who might otherwise fall through the cracks due to barriers like early marriage or pregnancy. The teachers were prepared to identify at-risk students and provide them with the support they needed. And we didn't just focus on academics. Teachers are also trained to support the holistic needs of students, which is often overlooked in many educational systems. One of the most important lessons taught was about menstrual hygiene management, ensuring that girls had the knowledge and resources to manage their health and continue their education without interruption. And to ensure this support was sustained, we established 56 district teacher support teams. And these teams were trained to offer continuous guidance to teachers, ensuring they had the resources and confidence to address the challenges in their classroom, whether they were educational or personal. And these teams played an integral role in keeping education systems resilient, especially in the face of the challenges like the COVID-19 pandemic, which was really impacting for all students. This wasn't just about girls. As you remember when I said when we began, it was about, we took a whole school approach. It was about transforming entire communities. So boys too were engaged in addressing the issues of early marriage and challenging societal norms. Messages like one you can see here on this t-shirt were crucial because gender equality starts with changing mindsets across the board, boys, families, and communities. In places like West Ganja, this led to dramatic shifts where we saw fewer girls marrying young and more children, regardless of gender, attending school. Finally, as we've mentioned, we knew that sustainability and accountability had to take a community-driven approach and engage a wide range of community members that Rhoda has touched upon. So just reiterating that we reached over 15,000 community members, spreading the message that education is the key to a brighter future for everyone. Again, that back to school campaign was really crucial to the program's success. Part of this community engagement also included supporting young mothers who thought their education was over. Through sessions hosted by UNICEF Ghana, these young mothers received guidance and resources to continue their education and care for their children, including support to help them re-enter school or vocational training, proving that motherhood does not mark the end of education, but the beginning of new opportunities. So thank you for learning more about UNdaunted Ghana.
Wow. So yeah, it's great to hear how so many girls lives were affected by this project.
These 3 projects that won the award this year, although they're in different countries, they're all focused on empowering women and girls and on gender equality. I'm wondering if you could share one lesson learned that others could learn from, or any best practices. Maybe let's try UNICEF.
So let me just start by bringing you warm greetings from the UNICEF Ghana family, as well as the over 29,000 learners and 900 teachers and over 15,000 community members that the Undaunted Women Project was able to touch their lives. In fact, this is a very important event for us because it's an event that celebrates impact on the lives of vulnerable people in Ghana, especially girls. So we are very excited to join today. As part of the project implementation, one of the key lessons that we learned was about co-creation. Within the disabilities fraternity, and let me bring this in, they have a saying that nothing about us without us. And it means that when you are designing programs, when you are developing interventions, you need to include the beneficiaries because it helps them to bring out the issues, to dialogue the solutions. And at the end of the day, you're able to see the ownership, they having the ownership, and also you sustaining the gains. What we did for the Undaunted Women Supporter Program was that from the beginning of the project implementation, there was a co-creation that involved community members, parents, traditional leaders, religious leaders, the adolescent girls themselves, and boys who we also know have to support them in terms of staying in school, completing their lower secondary, and transitioning to higher levels of education. In fact, the benefits of that co-creation ranges from the community owning the program, supporting its implementation, and sustaining the gains. One of the key issues that came out during the co-creation was on how do we see our girls going into male-dominated areas like science, going to study science programs, technology, engineering, mathematics. And so one of the key activities that was implemented on was how do you train teachers to be responsive to the needs of girls within these male-dominated areas? And I must say that at the end of the project, 33% of 1,000 vulnerable girls who were identified have completed lower secondary and are now pursuing science-related programs at higher levels of education. And we want to see more Ghanaian girls going into this area. And it is through the co-creation where some of these issues came up and solutions were identified to support them. Another critical area I also want to mention was the parental support for young mothers who had to return to school because they had given birth, but through the intervention, there was opportunity for these girls to go back. But the parents were there to take on their babies, to care for them so that these girls could go back to school focus on their studies, break that poverty cycle, be able to earn something for themselves and to take care of their babies. So these are the two critical lessons that we have learned in Ghana here, and we really appreciate the support from Undaunted Women through this initiative.
Thanks very much. So that idea of co-creation, community involvement, and as you said, nothing about us without us. I think that's a key message for everyone at every time to take that on board. Thank you for sharing that. In your experience, what role does community engagement and support play in the success of gender equality initiatives? I want to know, UNICEF, if you wanted to share a little bit about some of the community engagement piece. Rhoda, maybe I'll pass it to you.
Yes. So in Ghana, one thing that has been established is within the education space, you cannot take the community out if you expect to implement educational programs successfully. And so it's always very important that the community engagement is part of project implementation. When there was COVID-19 in Ghana, schools were closed for nearly a year and students had to stay home. Studies that were done show that many adolescent girls became pregnant at that time. And so when government announced that schools were going to reopen, UNICEF, in collaboration with the Girls Education Unit of Ghana Education Service, embarked on a back to school campaign. And the main intention for the back to school campaign was, how do we get some of these vulnerable girls, pregnant girls, or young mothers to return to school? Fortunately, at that same time, UNICEF had supported the Ministry of Education to develop guidelines on prevention of pregnancy among schoolgirls and facilitation of re-entry for young mothers into school after childbirth. So that document came in very handy for the back to school campaign. At the community level, traditional leaders, religious leaders, who on a normal day will go against anything that has to do with pregnancy and schooling, were engaged to understand the need to give these girls a second chance to education. And I must say that the back to school campaign was very successful in the sense that these girls were welcomed to school by their teachers because their teachers had also been engaged as part of the back to school campaign. At the community level, the traditional leaders, the parents, and the caregivers, because they were also engaged, were willing to support these girls to be able to return to school. And I like to quote what one young mother said after returning to school because of this back to school campaign. She's called Ernestina, and this is what she says, and I quote, "Without the back to school campaign, I may have never returned to school after childbirth. I am happy to have received the support from my parents and my teachers to help my return to school after childbirth. I am back on course to becoming a nurse." Unquote. So this is what Ernestina says. And just think about it. If this back to school campaign had not happened, where will Ernestina be now? Now, Ernestina has completed lower secondary school and has transitioned to senior high school or senior secondary. And the parents are helping to take care of the baby. The community is also supporting and not giving her names or abusing her. And so community engagement is very important and plays a very critical role when it comes to education for girls.
It's a good reminder that all of these projects help so many people, but it's the individual stories, that of lives being changed that really stay with us, I think. And it sounds like you really took a comprehensive approach involving, traditional leaders, the government, communities. So thank you for sharing about that. We can take some lessons from everything you all have shared today.
Let's turn now to our last discussion question. What measures do you take to ensure the sustainability and long-term impact of your projects focused on empowering women and girls? Rhoda, can we hear from UNICEF first on this, please?
Yes. So I must say that the co-creation activity that was implemented right from the beginning of the project implementation has really supported in terms of sustaining the gains of this project. At the Ghana education level, now they have owned all the gains, for instance, with the teacher training in the science, technology, engineering, mathematics initiative. All the teacher training content has now been adapted for use and for scale up in other districts. For UNICEF as an organization, we have also taken on board a lot of the lessons, which is now helping us in terms of developing and designing new programs that are targeting adolescent girls in school. I must also say that we are happy to inform everyone that the foundation that was built by the Undaunted Women Supporter Program has also been scaled up to 9 additional districts, which are supported by Hapag-Lloyd through the German national committees. And we are very excited that all the gains of the program is being heard not just within Ghana, but outside the shores of Ghana, and other investments are coming in from other donors to take this up to scale. Lastly, I would also like to mention that towards the end of the project implementation, we had the Undaunted Women pay a visit to Ghana to travel up north. They left the comfort of their country, their homes, to visit the project district. And that really empowered the Ghana education staff at the subnational level, engaging with the girls, engaging with the community level. It really showed them that this Undaunted Women Supporter Program is an important one, not just to the donors, to the government. And so they need to become strong advocates for scaling this up. So these are some of the areas or things that has been done to ensure that the gains of this program is being sustained.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, like sharing, like with, like to be ambassadors, like participant to be ambassadors. One of the, I think, yeah, great measures or things like can make it like the project more sustainable, and this can show like the long-term impact of the project. What challenges like have you encountered in ensuring that like girls stay in school? And what strategies like have been most effective in overcoming these obstacles?
From the Ghana side, during the co-creation workshop, we realized that there are different challenges that affects girls staying in school, completing their lower secondary, and transitioning to higher secondary. And some of those critical issues that were dialogued included school supplies. And if I talk about school supplies, I'm talking about school bags, school uniforms, stationery, and even sanitary pad. And it will interest you to know that for some girls, they would lose school, they will miss school and contact hours during their menstrual cycle because of lack of access to sanitary pads. And these are some of the critical issues that affect that adolescent girl living in that deprived community on a monthly basis. And if you do the calculation for how many days a girl is missing out on school in a month, multiply by the academic year, I'm sure your guess is good as mine that this girl will be losing out a lot. But fortunately for us in this Undaunted Women supported program, there came in the global program to end child marriage, where there was a bursary support component to supply school items to girls, including stationery, including sanitary pad, including PPEs during the COVID-19. And so very vulnerable girls coming from very deprived homes were identified, about 1,000 of them in all the 5 project districts. And these girls were supported with these supplies. And that went a long way to help all the 1,000 girls to stay in school right from junior high school 1 to junior high school 3. And 97% of those girls transition to higher secondary schools, with the remaining of them also going into vocational education. So that tells you that, yes, these are the challenges, some of the challenges that confront the girls. But once the help or the support comes in, it helps them to stay in school. They focus on their learning, are able to complete and transition to higher levels of education. And that is why for us at UNICEF, we will continue to engage. We will continue to engage with all stakeholders to come on board, because if you look at the data, even on the guidelines on pregnancy and schooling, so far we've been able to reach 700,000 Ghanaians out of the 34 million Ghanaians, which tells us that we still have more to do as Ghana. And so how do we do it? We need all stakeholders, we need our partners to come on board, so that, like that girl I spoke about, Ernestina, we have so many of them still at home because of stigma, because of fear, because of lack of parental support. And we need all partners to come on board to help many of such Ernestinas to come back to school, to be in school, and to help us break the poverty cycle and to contribute to Ghana's development.
Thank you so much, Rhoda. Very detailed answer, and I hope these tips for successes can be shared with the audience and with our other member agency as well. I have a question for all of you. So whatever whoever would like to share with us any remarkable success stories from your project that really stay with you.
Yes, I'd
Okay.
like to share from the
Go ahead.
Ghana side. So in terms of what is staying with us as the UNICEF Ghana family, I'll take it at 3 different levels. I'll take it at policy level, system, and practice levels. At the policy level, the gains that have been chalked through this program has now been adapted by the government, by the Ghana Education Service, in terms of looking at even teacher training that are more intentional, responding to the specific needs of girls. And so now when trainings in the science, technology, engineering, mathematics programs are happening, we don't just look at the content, but we look at how teachers are equipped with teaching methods that help them to respond to the diverse needs of girls, so that at the end of the day, their interest in these male-dominated subjects are also boosted, and they transition to higher levels of education to pursue these programs. So that is something at the policy level I would say is happening. Again, on the guidelines on pregnancy and schooling, now that is the government policy direction to all schools that on no account should any girl who is pregnant or a young mother be denied their access to education, or their right to education should be denied because they are pregnant or a young mother. And I think that's one positive thing. At the system level, a lot of teachers have been trained in terms of how do they, even within a low resource context, use local materials to improvise teaching and learning materials. I think we saw that in the video that was shared by Samantha, where kids are using items like maize, like gari, like rice in the classroom to learn in a very practical way in a science class. And this is something that has come to stay. It's not going away. Teachers are using it in their continuous professional development. And one thing which is also unique about that teacher training is the fact that all the facilitators have set up WhatsApp groups with all the teachers. So as and when teachers need support from the facilitators, they get real-time support on the WhatsApp platform to provide continuous support for the teachers. And like the story I shared about Ernestina, now pregnant girls, young mothers are having a second chance to go back to school. So we are happy and we appreciate all the support from the Undaunted women through our Canada national committees in Canada. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rhoda.
So thank you everyone for joining us for these incredible stories of change that are happening around the world, making lives better for women and children. Thank you so much.